What's that? The BaptiCatholic back in your podcast feed. So, we may have been down for a while, but we're not out for the count. That's my main takeaway from this.
Right. Yeah. So, today we're talking about finding God in the mundane, but stick around. At the end, we've got an announcement.
Secret.
Yeah. And it might explain where we've been.
Maybe. If you're local, you're like, all right, no, I ain't sticking around. I'm going to delete this episode like I was going to. Can we put something to rest here? All right. Secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone.
No.
Right?
No. Secrets are no fun. They could really hurt someone.
Mine's so much better.
Just everybody respond. Let's take a vote. We need to settle this.
You watch. Like, out of all the times we've asked people, what would you like to hear on the show? What would you like? Would you like to comment? People are like, cricket. Now they're like, it's secrets hurt someone. Okay, so we had this, I don't know, it was a couple days ago, and I was singing that to the kids or something, and she was like, no, it's this way. I'm like, forget you, Aaron. Okay. Anyway, speaking about the mundane, so we are talking about finding God in the mundane. This has been for me, and I guess probably, if I'm just making broad assumptions here, everyone, kind of the mundane, quote unquote, has become mainstream, right? Especially during this season that we're in of pandemic and of social distancing and kind of limiting the things that we're able to engage in, activities, that often would distract us or, keep us entertained and maybe a lot of fun to do. We're having to find ourselves kind of locked into the same mundane humdrum routine.
Yes.
That's true here.
I have never done so much laundry. Where does it all come from? I don't know. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah. But anyway, of course, there have been recent events here in the United States that have spiced things up for the past few weeks.
Ugh.
Election.
I'm not sure that I'd call it spiced. And I'm not sure that it took anything away from mundane for me. I was just like, I'm still ready for it to be over.
Yeah. We've got the rest of this month and next month. I mean, how many more things could 2020 throw our way?
I know. Like, are you trying to jinx us? Like, what the heck?
Maybe.
That's not. Are you throwing down the gauntlet? What else can you do, buddy?
What could you do? Yeah. But anyway, so since we're all kind of in this mundane kind of figuring things out, I thought it would be a kind of a cool episode to kind of explore this idea of finding God's will, right, in the mundane and finding out exactly what it is that he's calling us to when we don't necessarily feel as though he's calling us to anything. It's folding the 15th load of laundry, right? It's dealing with a kid who's screaming in the Mexican restaurant, I love chips!
Yeah.
Okay, I don't, that's just a random example. I don't know if that's real life.
Too detailed.
They have happened tonight. So things like that. How do we find God's will? And it can be so cliche. This is one of those topics, finding God's will for you in your day-to-day life. You're like, oh, shut up, buddy. Like, I have tons of responsibilities. I don't have time to think about that. Or that's sweet and twee and sentimental. But, that doesn't really apply to me. We'll let the theologians and philosophers kick that around a little bit while I'm trying to change doo-doo diaper number 10 today.
That sounds like something like religious people do. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like brothers in the monastery, which, I mean, I'm sure they do that, but aren't we all called to it?
Yeah. So I thought this would be kind of an episode where we promo a little bit of a book that Aaron and I have been reading in a kind of with a small group of friends that really kind of hits on this topic. But it's called He Leadeth Me. Right there. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're not, why aren't you subscribed and smash that subscribe button? I hear that a lot here lately. Smash that like button and turn the bell on. I'm like, okay, that's so cool, dude. But if you want to smash it, if you want to delicately click it, I don't whatever's your preference. We just need some more subscribe. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, was it Father Walter Chiswick? We're going with Chiswick. You know, I've heard a lot of pronunciations thrown around, but Polish name, we're going with Chiswick. Somebody correct us. I dare you. Anyway, so the reason why I thought this would be an awesome book to kind of go along with this episode is Father Walter. He was a prisoner of the Soviet Union. He was classified as a Vatican spy, right? He was obviously a Polish priest, and the Nazis invaded, and he ended up going to Russia and being imprisoned as a Vatican, quote unquote, Vatican spy. You know, whatever that means. You know, of course, you know, with that regime, there's a lot of mistrust of the church,
of any religion, right? The state becomes the religion.
Right.
Communism.
We don't need religion. Just focus and obey and follow the state. So this was an impactful book for me for a few different reasons, because I think this topic for me within the past year or so has been very poignant. The whole, I get it, God, I need to find out what I'm supposed to be. You're following your will here, but really, shouldn't I be doing X, Y, Z? This other holy thing that I think I'm supposed to be doing. Why am I not doing that? Why am I having to kind of waste, quote unquote, according to me, waste my time over here? And one of the things that Father Walter Chiswick does. Me? Yeah, exactly. Why am I wasting time over here?
Just kidding.
No, dear, that's not what I said. But you can kind of get in a spiral with that sort of thing. And what Father Walter brought out for me is, even in the most terrible situations, right? Being in this Soviet Union, the prisons and the terrible conditions, and yet he was able to cling to his faith and to see, right, God's will. I mean, obviously he admits in the book, there was times that he got close to despairing and things like that. But what brought him back every time was that realization that right here, right now, God's calling me to something. He's allowed this to happen. For some reason, and I'm a part to play in this. Now, where is God's will? Am I going to accept it? Am I going to work it out? Or am I just going to let things happen to me instead of, by God's grace, happen to them, right? Impact people, even though it seems just a desperate situation. Okay. So anyway, I thought we would take a few quotes from this and just encourage you. We'll leave the link to the book down in the show notes. Encourage you to also read it as well. But one of the quotes from page 165, when he's talking about this topic of finding God's will in even the most desperate situations, he says, quote, "Even in moments of human discouragement, the consciousness that I was fulfilling God's will in all that happened to me would serve to dispel all doubt and desolation. Whatever the trials of the moment, whatever the hardships of sufferings, more important than all was the knowledge that they had been sent by God and served his divine providence." Okay, how many times do we sit and we're discouraged by far less than that? He's suffering these rations. Oftentimes he probably didn't eat at all. He was brought in for a lot of interrogations because there were spies, even among the prisoners, who would rat you out to the soldiers, and this guy's a priest, and so they would bring him in and interrogate him, and there would be all these terrible things done to him, and yet he's saying here, finding that kernel, what is it that God wants for me right here in this situation? What is it that He wants me to do? Brought him that peace almost amongst all of that. But yeah, I'm offset by far less, right? And not feeling maybe fulfilled, or as fulfilled as I ought to be, or not feeling as holy, or maybe I'm not influencing people the way I think I should influencing people. Why isn't this podcast just raving, just mad all over the earth, and people are just, ridiculous things, really, but still.
But still, at the same time, that gives you a lot of encouragement when it is those big times of suffering, to look at it that way and say, okay, this is where I am. This is the situation I'm in. I'm thinking of like friends of ours that have had miscarriages. We've had miscarriages. Those situations where I say, "Thy will be done," and say, I don't physically like this. I don't understand this, but this is God's will, and accepting it and framing in that way as a source of healing, it just so much more effective than saying, then I don't know, your opposite would be what? Just being mad at God, right? Like,
Yeah.
Is there any good in that, to just be mad and I'm better than this, or you don't really deserve better or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
turn it on yourself.
Yeah.
So following up, he says on page 176, quote, "The circumstances and people that each day presents to us through that God presents to us through His providence offer us the opportunity to perform action after action and prove proof of our dedication to the kingdom. Whether we are married and taking care of home and family, or studying in school, or working in an office, or a factory, or on a farm, whether we are dedicated to the priestly or religious life, matters little. In whatever we do, we must always seek first the kingdom of God." It's like, I really like the specificity that he goes into. It wasn't just like he hit the main vocations, married life and priestly, vocation or something like that. It was, you're working on a farm, man. You're
In
the
a
factory
factory,
worker.
yeah.
You're on the assembly line. You're doing whatever the world considers the most meaningless or monotonous job there is, right? There's meaning there, and there's something that God has allowed to happen to you, and that He wants you to then turn by His grace to act upon and find His will in. I just thought, man, but see, when it comes to that, when it comes to priests saying it, or even, reading it or hearing other people say, God wants to use you where you are, I'm more of a, like, I get that intellectually, but if I'm honest, I'm kind of a yeah, got it. All right, sure, gotta live a holy life, and I'm really doing my job here, see? From the 1920s, see? But in reality, do I work that out? I'll just kind of say to myself, I'll try to be a good husband and father, sure, but what I really need, but what needs to be the response to that is, no, stop, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You're doing it wrong. If you think, I'll do this, but really, no, like he was being called in the Soviet, work camps and prison, find it now. And God will take care of the future, right? Maybe you pray for the future and something that you want and a desire that you're looking forward to, fine. But if you are so lost in that potentiality, then the thing that God has laid out for you and wants you to fulfill, you're just letting it pass by.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's easier said than done, right? But Satan loves that self-talk. Right? Of you, really, I need to be doing something. If he can keep you distracted on the future, even if it's a quote-unquote holy future, he'll keep you distracted because he doesn't want you working and doing the thing that he set for you right now. How long can I push this down the road for Johnny? Oh yeah, you'll get to it eventually, Johnny. Don't worry. Yeah, you'll get to that holy thing. You'll serve God one of these days when you're really doing this. When you're retired, when you don't have kids in the house, when you're empty nesters, then you'll serve God. When you're able to do X, Y, or Z, or give like you should, or be able to do this like you should, then, right? Oh, sure, he'll play into that because, he's taking a gamble too that you won't ever do it. You won't do it now in the present. You won't do it later. So.
Yeah. I mean, Satan totally plays on our dissatisfactions.
Sure. Yeah.
He knows, like,
because he's constantly dissatisfied.
Right. He's constantly dissatisfied. He wants us to constantly be dissatisfied, and so he can tell enough of what we want, right? Like our desires, to say, well, if I keep them focused on that desire, then they can't be focused on the real desire, which should be God, right? Anything to distract us.
Distract, right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, we don't think about it as being
The
distracted by.
distractor.
Yeah. We automatically categorize the things he would distract us with are innately sinful. Or like wrong. Oh, we're distracted by this thing that really causes us to struggle and to stumble. What if this is his master plan. What if he is keeping us distracted by things that are quote unquote holy?
Oh, you mean like a rosary that we say without thinking about it?
Possibly, But I was even thinking of more quote unquote grandiose things in our mind. Like, okay, God, I'll suffer through this thing and I won't give him, I'm trying to get to X, right? I'm trying to get somewhere. And so I know this is what I'm not really supposed to be doing, but I'll muck through to get to the thing that I'm supposed to. And you blow past what he's asking you to do, the lives he's having you ask you to impact in the here and now. And so realizing that is tough. It is tough. But we have to see it, you know. I just was really inspired. I was really inspired by this book and the witness that he gave, because, you know, in those situations, I mean, fluffy, theoretical stuff aside, when you're in that kind of a desperate situation, right, you're either all in or you're out, right? Because if you're going to be spied on by the same people that you eat with and be ratted out to go into these interrogations, well, then forget it. You know, it's either I'm all in on this thing or I'm not. And,
right.
Realizing that we got to see it in that, third poopy diaper of the day. I'm using a lot of parent references here, as you might be able to tell. Or hearing Baby Shark for the 15th time. Right, I just, even at the dinner table tonight, the little one was just doing her little hand motions. Baby Shark, Baby Shark. I was just like, this is extreme.
Yes.
Right, are we over? So for the how of this week, something very simple, and it even says so in the book, but is the morning offering. And now you pray that with the kids a lot of times, and it's part of homeschooling.
We do. We generally will start the day with that, with our homeschooling, to begin as we're offering all of this work that we're doing, but all of our entire day to God. Yeah. So and I won't quote it word for word or even the prayer, but you can look it up. There's different variations of it. There are more kid friendly ones. There's kind of really nice, fluffy, flowery language versions. There's
of
some
them
that rhyme, which can be easier to memorize. Yeah.
They like those as well, the ones that rhyme. But Father Chiswick, he was talking about just how. It's funny because in the same sentence where he offers it up, he's basically like, I know this might sound twee or not that important, but it really is, because at the very beginning of the day, you're offering not only your joys, but your sufferings, the trials, the good things, the bad things, and you're offering it all up, gathering it all together and offering it up to the Lord.
It sets the tone for the day.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And so that, those of us who maybe don't live contemplative lives where we can constantly be in that state of mental prayer or contemplative prayer, well, we're doing this one thing and we're really focused on, whatever it is for me, lesson planning or doing the things with the kids around the house or whatever. You've already offered that up. It's kind of like a hashtag life hack. Okay. You've offered up some things. And even though your mind may not be focused on God or prayer at that very second, you've offered it. Right. And hopefully during the day, your mind turns back to God, but that's a way of offering it all up to Him. Yeah.
So another thing for how, that's something I try to do, is when I'm doing those things that I hate doing, like the laundry. So can
you tell we don't like laundry?
Right. Or dishes or whatever I'm doing. Okay. I know a lot of people will listen to something or watch TV or whatever while you're doing that stuff, which is fine, but I try to pray for whoever's clothes I'm folding at the time. Obviously it's the whole family. But if I'm doing it for myself, then maybe I'm praying, if I'm not married or whatever, praying for in Thanksgiving for the sustenance of having all these things. But praying for, your spouse, your kids, everything, that they would grow in holiness and that kind of thing, be protected and that kind of stuff. So, you can do that with laundry. You can do that with, I was cleaning the bathrooms tonight, and it's that's mindless work, right? But just praying through it and praying for your family and stuff while you're doing that. That's just a simple way to consistently keep your mind coming back to God in those everyday, boring, monotonous activities that we do.
Yeah. I tell you something, from my own experience, it's really easy for me. Aaron's not a big talk radio person, but I could turn on a podcast, especially the BaptiCatholic podcast. Okay. I could turn on a podcast on the way to work. I could listen to the radio and just it could honestly be just noise in the background, not even listen to it as much, and I just for some reason would do that. But one thing that I pretty regularly have been in the habit of is just leaving the radio off praying the rosary, or maybe the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and cutting out excuses for not praying.
Yeah.
That's malarkey. I don't have time. I've got kids and other stuff. You have a commute. There are all these pockets, right, during the day. You have mindless work like laundry or something, right, where we're working those things in. And the morning offering, all these can work toward that good. And something that Father Chiswick says, and I'll kind of wrap this thing up with it, but he's talking specifically about the morning offering, but I think it also applies to what we were just talking about. He compares that offering up of the mundane, the lives that we have each day as, quote, they're like the grains of wheat ground up to make the host at Mass that could be consecrated to God and be transformed into something of great value in God's sight. The grains that are ground up and become the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ.
It reminds me of St. Ignatius of Antioch. His quote about being ground into the Eucharist. Right?
Yes, exactly right. I mean, the bread of God. So, realizing that those tiny little grains, the monotonous things, the mundane things, the thing we don't think count, those are the things that could be ground in, right? In God's plan, He wants to ground them into something of significance and something great, something really great. Okay, so that's your BaptiCatholic challenge for this week as well, is to find your preferred version of the morning offering, all right, and pray that daily. Yeah. Right? Or get into the habit of it once or twice this week and build on that until it becomes a normal part of your prayer life.
It's, I have seen little hand crosses that have it on it. If you can put that on like your bedside table and just wake up and hit that first thing and read it, and you're right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this week, find that morning offering, do it, stick to it, and offer those things to the Lord. Until next time.
Oh, and
surprise! The surprise!
Sorry.
We almost forgot.
We're having baby number 4. Number 4.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
Y'all that are like on YouTube can see.
You can actually see.
Yeah. But and everybody locally has seen it. It was confirmed by our neighbor who was like, "Oh, I didn't know what y'all were expecting." Oh, well.
Don't you love people like that? They have more courage than I have. Just assume, oh, I didn't know you having a baby. I would never do that. I mean, thankfully she was right. Okay, but anyway. So we would appreciate your prayers wherever you are,
and your graciousness for why. I'm sorry, y'all, between being sick and just tired. We're going to get more regular at this. I just got to hit my stride a little bit. We're almost to the second trimester now, so we're going to get there. But
we're knocking on a year podcasting come January. And the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, is coming up December 12th.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll be probably breaking something out around then, special. We'll see.
Oh, yeah. I've already got a feast planned, so
we'll let you know about that.
Yeah.
Until next time, see you next week on
the BaptiCatholic Show.